Alright, what's up everybody? Today's video, I just want to talk about God's timing over our own timing because I think a lot of times we want to trust in our own timing and trust in ourselves when it comes to when certain things are gonna happen. But I feel like the Lord's timing is just supreme. For my life personally, I've tried to do things in a certain time and it just hasn't worked. But then when I just give it to God and trust in His timing, I've seen Him work in my life. So I'm gonna read a verse and then I'm gonna elaborate on it a little bit more. So I'm reading out of Luke chapter 15, verse 17. It says, "When he finally came to his senses, he said to himself, 'At home even the hired servant has food enough to spare, and here I am dying of hunger.'" So in this story, it's the story of the prodigal son. And the son goes and takes all the inheritance that his dad has, and he leaves and he goes and he loses it all, and he becomes he ends up having to work for this person and feed these cows and these pigs because there's a famine, and he comes to his senses. He's like, man, even at home the hired servant was fed, and here I'm like struggling to even eat. So he went back to his father, and in my story, coming to God, I try to find fulfillment in things of the world. I tried the clothes, all these other things, and none of it was fulfilling. And I had, at the end of that, I'm like, man, I remember what my mom said. I remember my dad said. They always talked about God. And back then, I didn't believe in them. Like, whatever you say, mom, whatever you say, dad. But, finally, I came to my senses like, man, I remember what my mom said, Even though it was years later, I finally I remember that because that seed was planted, And because it was the Lord's timing. So I feel like the Lord's timing is, sometimes He puts certain people or certain things on our heart for us to remember. So like, boom, oh yeah, I remember. My mom told me about that, So, yeah, just trust in the Lord's timing, and I even had a friend today. He was telling me, he's like, yeah, my grandma has faith, So it's like He puts people in our lives that lead us towards Him, whether that's siblings, friends, those people plant seeds of the gospel in us, and then later in our life, when the Lord has His timing and His will done, we're like, oh yeah, I remember. My mom told me about Jesus. My aunt, my grandma, my friend told me about this God person. Let me give it a look, and I gave it a look, and my life's been changed ever since. So just trust in the Lord's timing, and He will provide for you. I hope you have a blessed day, and amen.